Hello, welcome in to another episode of Chi Time, your conscious living show with me, Clara Apollo. And on this episode, we are really diving into the chi of things, you know, my favorite topic. And I've been wanting to speak with Dr. Pedram Shojai for many years, if I'm honest, since you were producing such incredibly wise documentary series about the things we really need to be looking at the moment. So Pedram, he's had his training. He says he's a Taoist abbot. I mean, that's amazing. And I'm going to ask him about that. So deeply steeping in the Taoist principles. He was an urban monk. You might have even heard of the urban monk. He's written a book. He's many books, actually. His new book is called Focus, and that's what we're going to be really looking at, because that is so key to everything at the moment. But he's more recently just produced a documentary series with Nick Polizzi called Exhausted. So I bet you've caught some of that, because that was full of juicy, oh my goodness, that taught me so much. Welcome to Chi Time, Pedram. Hello.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So yeah, Exhausted is, let's kick off with that one, because I think that is a topic that touches so very many people. And is that why you chose to bring this really out in the open, about it in so many different angles?
Yeah, as a clinician, it became abundantly clear that the underlying vitality of a given individual was what determined the outcome of whatever it is we did. And so everyone's coming in saying, I got this, I got that. And oh yeah, by the way, I'm exhausted. And so as I started kind of turning those stones over, I realized that, look, if your energy systems, if your energy metabolism isn't working correctly, your immunity, your brain, your digestion, nothing else works. It's like, it's like a budget for the government, right? Like you need money to build roads and, buy school books and all those types of things. And so, someone that would come in lacking energy, no matter what interventions we brought, it was mediocre results at best. And so it really changed the framework of how I looked at patient care, which was, I got to big this person up. I got to give them a shot in the arm. I need their energy systems back online so we can have healing, so we can have resolution of whatever the problem was.
Yeah, absolutely. So I neglected to say that you are also a doctor of Oriental Medicine. So hence the clinician aspect of things. But you also are a great Qigong player. And I know that this is a discipline that has helped me regain my vitality, because I was burnt out as a costume designer back in London back in the late 90s. And I was in my early 30s and I felt like I was 75, although when I'm 75, of course, I'll be feeling very pecker and puppet and all that. But at the time, it's like, why do I feel so tired? Because sleep wasn't sorting it out. I was mainlining coffee and tea and all the things that you reach for, because you know that vitality is the bit you need, but you don't necessarily know how to get it. So how do you suggest people do? What's the first thing that people can do to really help them tune in with their vitality right here and now?
First thing is to just stop, stop and assess. And really, I mean, look, what is vitality? It's this kind of sum total average, if you will, of your diet, your exercise, your sleep, and your mindset. You look at these different categories in your life and you're like, look, where am I bleeding? Is it my diet? Am I having, a bunch of cheese and my body tells me it doesn't like cheese? Well, that's a pretty good place to start, right? Am I poisoning myself with, alcohol, overly caffeinated, drinks and all the things that people are doing right now to borrow energy from tomorrow to get through today? Or am I just not moving? Am I just a blob? And am I just, sitting in front of a computer screen and then, getting into a car and then going and sitting in front of a TV screen, right? And there's a lot of ways to assess where your vitality is diminishing. But I mean, like, to me, first stop on that journey is, are you poisoning yourself? It's a pretty good place to start. And that happens with certain foods. Figure it out, right? It happens with alcohol. It happens with drugs. It happens with, pills, and it happens with environmental toxins, right? We moved into a new house, several years ago. Brand new house, felt good about it, bought this thing, we're moving up in life. And so didn't quite look at all the materials, right? Just a blind spot. And all of a sudden, you have this new house that's outgassing. And my wife went crazy and bought a bunch of new furniture. And I walked in there and said, wow, it smells like cancer in here. right? Opened up every window, aired it out for a week, and still it was just like, wow, put that couch outside. Because that's also something that could nip you in the bud and basically, destroy the cellular vitality that would have you feeling energized.
Oh, this is so true. There's so many different ways that we as physical beings, well, energetic beings, but physical units on the planet are having to process toxins. They're coming in from so many different angles, and this didn't used to be the way. And it's like this whole call to nature. And I don't necessarily mean going to the bathroom, although I do think going to the bathroom and having a standing stop moment as well as a sitting stop moment is very useful. But it is knowing that nature, she knows best. I mean, this is the Taoist philosophy, is the principles of nature. It is underpinning everything, and anything that is not in alignment with that ultimately cannot survive. But us being part of nature, all this toxic processing that we're doing, it takes a toll on our physical bodies, but also on our minds. So how can we get into a space of stopping and listening to ourselves if our minds are all sort of crammed of all sorts? Where is that spaciousness inside? Where can we find that?
Here's the paradox of the answer I'm going to give you is you want spaciousness, you want to stop, time, you want to decompress and go into nothingness. Great. I'm going to give you something to do. So we talk about being and doing. And, the problem is we all think that, we're one podcast away from getting some sort of like ancient Chinese secret that's going to teach us how to just drop into eternal bliss and get it all figured out. That's just a misread of all of this. You got to sit on your butt and do the work. You have to get in a square horse and do the work. And so the way is the training. And, everyone in our culture has been exposed to this marketing nonsense that is out there of people trying to sell sugar cereal to children, basically being like, oh, no. You don't need to meditate. Here's my stupid app. You don't need to do the training. Here's my, energy drink. And it's all just been usurped. And the message that is central to all of the lineages that I've studied, and I've studied with a lot of them, is you got to do the work. What is that? Sit on your butt and meditate. Do the Qigong. Do your practices. Then you can stop time. Then you can, as you do these things, then you can slip into a state of being and understand what all these people are talking about. But if you're sitting here trying to understand this in some sort of rational, abstract way, and you're not doing the work, just keep listening to podcasts for the rest of your life. You're never going to get the benefits, right? You got to do the work. I'm sorry. That's not a popular message. I don't care.
But you're telling it like it is. Pedram Shojai is with us here on Chi Time. Got to do the work, people. And when we go inside, when we come into this relationship with ourselves and we become our own best friend and we listen to that subtle small voice inside, is actually really quite powerful, but it's not a big shouty voice. It can be a bit when you think about, oh, what happens, what am I going to find? But as you say in your new book, that internal work alleviates psychological problems. So actually that fear of going inside is fear, what is it, false evidence appearing real, or whatever you want to say about that, but it's not real, is it? It's that resistance. It's noticing the resistance and going there anyway. Yes.
It's just, we live in a culture where we move away from discomfort. Give me some morphine, prescribe me a pill, give me a bottle of wine and some cheese, distract me away from my internal state, which is loud and scary and filled with trauma and grief and unresolved emotions and all these types of things that have us move out away from the core of who we are. And then we fall for the central trick of the devil, which is to think that the answer, the solution to what's happening inside of me has to come from outside of me. I'm looking for something outside of me to fix me. And that is the central polarity flip of where everyone has been distracted and distorted into being what the Buddha calls a hungry ghost, searching endlessly for something outside of oneself, not realizing the answer has always been right here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and whatever discipline, whatever spiritual discipline you're looking at or you're working with, it's the same thing. Go inside, be with yourself, be present with yourself, recognize your essence. And this brings up the topic of where to place your attention, where the mind can be busy out front doing drama stuff, or it can be in the background presence. Could you speak to us a bit about this different presencing of one's mind, where to place yourself?
Yeah, and I'll preface this by saying there's several schools of thought. There's many ways to climb that mountain, right? One of the basic things that I will teach beginning students is just to anchor their mind with their breath, something as steady and rhythmic and real as the need to draw in oxygen, right? And what we do is we simply put the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, sit, or if you're standing, bend your knees and do low diaphragmatic breathing, as if you had an imaginary balloon in your lower abdomen. Just inflate that balloon on the inhale. Deep, 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 long, long lasting breath. And then deflate it on the exhale. And keep going. And as you assign your mental sentinels, if you will, to just observing and being with that, it will start to bring about a state of consciousness that feels like home. Now, are you going to think about your bills? Are you going to think about your next appointment? Are you going to think about, the barking dog or the screaming kid? Of course you are. That's what the mind does. It's constantly scanning, looking for problems to solve, looking for danger, and being stuck in an abstract reality. And then you think to yourself, wow, I really suck at this. See, I suck at this. Everyone sucks at this. You go back to the breathing and stop judging yourself and continue to anchor your breath to your lower dantian, is this area we call it, below your navel, and continue to assign your mind to the task of doing this and observing this. And over time, you will get better at it. Does that mean you will eventually be at a place where there's no thought and no monkey chatter or any of that? No, of course not. You'll just be better at not reacting to it. And that takes practice. It's called a practice, right? It takes the practice to get there. Yet, we live in a culture where no one wants to do the work. And then they complain about being anxious and spun out and tired and blah, 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 right? And we know the answer is right there. You just have to do something about it. God forbid you have to do something to help yourself.
It's so strange, isn't it? How humanity has evolved in this way.
Devolved, frankly, yes.
Devolved in this way, sure. There's this
Yeah.
whole like, I want to manifest a better life, and I'm going to have positive affirmations, and I'm going to focus on, I'm going to run a mantra, I'm going to do this. But the important thing is to do the practice. And in your new book, Focus, you are talking about doing gongs, doing these which is the word qigong is it's the work, isn't it? It's the energy cultivation work. But this is something that's helped you with all the manifesting you've done in your life and becoming successful at what you're doing. Is that you've been doing 100 days at a time, segments, deciding what that's going to be, and then running with it for 100 days. And there's a story in the book that says you got to day 42 at one stage and then fell off the wagon, and then I'm going to go back to the day one again. But I bet you didn't fall off at 42 coming through at that time.
Every single day back up to that, I was 46, and I remember it very well.
Okay,
every single day of those first 46 days, it was like, wow, what happened, right? Stay focused, right? And what happens is, listen, we live in the information age, right? Where our attention has been monetized. Our attention is the currency of this behemoth industry that uses data and neuroscience to draw us outside of ourselves and use our creative manifesting God-given potential to help manifest someone else's dreams. Take the time and energy we exchange for money out of our pockets into something we don't need, right? And so if you want to stand a chance, you have to reabsorb and realign your focus and retroflect it inward so that you become self-aware, and then you determine where your focus goes, because where your focus goes is where your energy will go. And where your energy goes, over time, material reality will assemble around it to manifest. Now, you could talk about like Sai Baba pulling something out of heaven, or I could think, hey, I want to build a shed out in the yard. And the idea of building a shed eventually gets me to, go to the hardware store and, do some work and buy the lumber and buy the nails and take this idea and turn it into a material reality that it's called a shed out in my yard, right? And so I'm moving matter to create this thing that's a vision. But if I don't hold that vision, if I say today I'm going to go build a shed and tomorrow I'm going to go fix the sprinklers and the next day I'm going to go change the light bulbs, and I never, ever, ever stay focused enough to build the shed, guess what happens? Look at the lives around you, right? It's just a fragmented reality, and everyone's just got these little seeds that they plant, but they never water and they never stay focused on, and they have chaos all over the garden, weeds everywhere. And so what do you got to do to finish that shed? Well, you make a plan, you execute on that plan, and you don't stop until it's done, right? And that is in every single thing in life, whether it's getting your PhD, whether it's teaching your kid how to ride a bike, whether it's losing 40 pounds. Where's your focus? And that right there is what's being drawn right out of you. And so if you don't take it back, you don't stand a chance in this world. You don't.
So true. It's the crux of it is now, isn't it? We can feel it with what's going on. There's so much information coming at us from different sides, all different forms of, well, I'm not even going to say the truth because a lot of it isn't, confusing people and saying, oh, I've done the research, listen to what I'm saying. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Why don't you go and do that? Here's the link, go and do the research. And it's like people are handing over that really important, what am I going to make my mind up here, to somebody else who might well be being sponsored by somebody that's got a vested interest in what that research turns out like.
That's
And
it.
so, yeah, so this call to be mindful, to be present with your truth so that you know what that feels like, and then receiving information, choosing when to go and gather information. Because let's face it, I think a lot of us are agreeing that the turn on the telly is not a good thing to do anymore. In fact, I don't know about you, but I haven't had a telly in the house for a long, long time, and many of us don't.
I'm not smart enough to watch a telly. There are teams of neuroscientists who understand my animal instincts and behaviors better than I ever would, and are using color and light and very subtle influential things to convince me I need this truck to be a man, or convince my wife she needs this purse to be desirable. And it's just, you don't stand a chance if you let your guard down with the amount of manipulation and coercion that's on the media nowadays. Go sit under a tree and catch your breath and get your attention re-anchored and understand what your priorities are, and stop being a pawn in someone else's priority game.
Yeah. Yeah. Very wise words. Stop being a pawn in somebody else's priority game. Thank you, Pedram. That is genius. And this, I think some people do know, but then they get distracted back with the shiny things. And it's, how do we get society back on track? Or do we have to split society? I mean, what's your feeling? I know you have children as well, don't you? How are we moving forward? I remember watching that film of yours, Prosperity, and that had a real clarity around where to place the attention on the planet and the people, and then maybe some profit. But there is the way to work this moving forwards now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's right in front of us. I mean, listen, society is coming unraveled. This has happened before. It'll come back, right? I mean, you have on one hand white supremacy and all these kind of fascist rise of all these voices that are kind of pulling us backward. And listen, there are hedge funds putting a ton of money into the distortion of reality, taking us, further and further away from, making the right moves for climate resilience, because someone's profiting on the status quo. And so, look, this will all turn around. My kids, they don't get the screen time. Very minimal screen time. They're out in the woods. We're doing kung fu training. They're doing skiing and mountain biking and tennis and all these things that get them to be in their bodies. And we're meditating and we're working diligently to turn these humans into resilient, conscious beings because the consciousness is, again, the currency, right? It's like, oh, dad, I need this toy. Oh, I'm going to cast this Pokemon spell. And they're being pulled into this abstract reality where then they're being leveraged on their young adaptive minds and like their identities trying to fit in to then, being parts of these kind of social camps and all these things that pull them into this consciousness of needing to belong and needing to identify themselves with things that don't matter at a very young age. Screw that.
Yeah.
Screw that. You want your children? Take them back, right? Screw that. That is an absolute, it's a crime. And the minds of our children are being mined early on so that they can become better customers and consumers and, mindless voters and just blobs that then get plugged into a healthcare system that's parasitic and extracts their chi. And being a resilient human means you know how to draw chi through your crown and through the earth, and how you can be just this incredibly vibrant being, this sun that can ignite once you understand how to drink energy and manifest and be the light. None of that messaging lives in Saturday morning cartoons, right? So don't let them live there. Don't let them drink from that fountain. That's a poisoned well.
Yes, I could go on so many directions with you here. I know we've only got about 5 minutes left, but Pedram has said he will return for another interview at some stage in the future, because I would love to speak to you more about the three treasures and the Qigong aspect. And it's a real deep interest of mine, and I'd love for you to share some of your experiences with people. But I think now we're going to follow the light, and we're going to be around how we are all light beings. There's a luminosity within each and every one of us in our cells, and I would love for you to describe a bit about that physiologically. What's the biochemistry? Which part of the cell is emitting the light? What are we talking about here? And how can we activate that more?
So we are now starting to get into the land of translational science, right? And so I can tell you what I know, and I can tell you what I've seen with my eyes closed, right? And so what I've seen with my eyes closed is the luminescence of every single atom and every single space between the atom, and the connection of all life through the fabric of consciousness, which has a deep knowing. When you feel it and you see it, you understand who you are in the grand scheme of things, and how beautiful and wondrous and hilarious the whole thing is, right? It's just this world of distortions and delusions. We perpetuate it. It's not who we are, right? It's not who we are. It's the dramas we are playing out, and for whatever karmic reasons, we're learning lessons. Now, these tiny little organelles inside of the nucleus of every single one of our cells, called the mitochondria, is an ancient form of bacteria. We had a symbiotic relationship. Somehow, billions of years ago, we had prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. And the eukaryotic cells somehow made a deal with this bacteria. And this bacteria came into the nucleus. And this type of bacteria then became a part of the eukaryotic cell. And they lived and thrived together. Now, this mitochondria took the eukaryotic cell up and away, because it created the capacity to generate more energy, to extract more energy from sugars in particular, but just from the breakdown of molecules. Take oxygen and capacitate. Now you have more energy coming out. What happens with more energy? You have profit. You go forth and prosper. And that led to the evolution of multicellular species and Here we are today. You want to increase the quantity, the quality, and the vitality of these mitochondria. First off, they're very environmentally sensitive. You got to get all the toxins out of your life as much as you can. If you live a quarter mile away from a highway, you have 50% greater chance of having heart disease. You live a half a mile away from a highway, you have a 25% greater chance of having heart disease. I mean, these neurotoxins, these endotoxins, are killing the mitochondria's ability to generate energy. What's energy? It's like cash flow. You got more cash in your pocket, you got more options, right? And as you are let's back this up because this is more of a spiritual radio station, right? What is this energy? Where's this energy coming from? If you think about how this energy that we're using and running our lives on is grabbed and stored, we are talking about photons. We are talking about little packets of starlight from a star we call the sun, right here, coming down. And after the fungal kingdom, the fungus broke down, the minerals, and then the plant kingdom showed up, and the plants magically figured out this thing called photosynthesis, which is taking a packet of starlight, running it through a process, and storing the energy of that starlight in a chemical bond that we then ingest and break down, and then take that starlight and take our lives forward. And if you're eating animals, those poor animals ate those plants for a long time and condensed that starlight in forms of energy that we then reverently consume to carry our lives forward. But we are literally talking about light and photons coming from the star we call our sun, taking them, empowering every cell of our bodies to then, the question is, to then do what? What are you doing with your life? Are you just existing and taking Lipitor until you die? Or are you going to make something of this thing called life and then direct and focus that starlight towards an emanation and manifestation of dreams that matter here in your short tenure on planet Earth? Because what's the point of being healthy if you can't have the focus and the clarity of where you even want this thing to go? I can't tell you how many thousands of patients I've seen where it's like, yeah, okay, we get them healthy, and then they go back to being unhealthy. Why? Because their operating system wasn't anchored on a direction, on clarity, on focus of where they want their lives to be, because they just never thought about it. They're told what life is supposed to be. You get the white picket fence, you get the cars, you got this, you got that, you get, I got a bigger TV. Who cares? Those are all distractions. What do you want to do with this thing called life? And without that, what's the point of having robust chi? What's the point of being healthy? What's the point of doing pull-ups or any of it? We just idle and we get sick, and then we come up from illness just to a place where we're idling a little better, and we live out our lives. Yawn.
Oh, yes. Yawn, exactly. What is it? You're saying, are you just passing time or are you mastering time? And you probably have people close to you that have passed. Like we all know people that are no longer in physical form anymore. So we know that we're not here forever, and yet we act as if we are. And yet how many people on their deathbed go, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done that. It's like, do it now.
If not now, then when? Right? It's not like tomorrow you're going to have more energy, more resilience, less metabolic inertia. If not now, then when? Everyone thinks like sometime in the future, it's like, oh, I'm going to have more money and more happiness and more time to do this thing better.
Well, we might well have the freedoms we have now. We don't know what's going to be happening this time next year. It's like, go with what you have now. Use what you have now. And do what you can now.
Yeah. Has to be. Become vibrantly alive right now, and then keep the lights on and make every single decision through that matrix. Because if not, you're going to be lulled to sleep and you're going to make decisions that aren't yours. Yeah,
and that whole dream spell that's going on. And it's a powerful dream spell. And there's a lot of people doing it, but there's also a lot of people stepping away from it. And it is that you are the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with is one of those things that's bandied around. So it is important where you focus your attention on who you hang out with, what you read, what you do with your time. Everything comes back to self-presencing and checking in with yourself, and keep doing it. That's a practice, isn't it? Keep getting back on the horse, keep coming in. You fall off the horse, hey, you mess up sometimes, but then get back on it again.
Amen.
Hey, so in the last couple of minutes here with Dr. Pedram Shojai, thank you so much for sharing your time with us here on Chi Time. Total pleasure. How can people find out more about you? Where can they go?
Yep. a couple places, theurbanmonk.com, where all of our kind of online learning and Qigong classes and things are. And then my films and series are on whole.tv, WHOLE.tv.
Yeah. Would you come back and chat some more about
Happy to.
the whole Qigong side of things? Because I have specifically not mentioned the internal alchemy stuff that I'm fascinated by, because I think we could have some fun with that in the future.
Happy
Thank
to.
you. And is there any, I mean, we've touched on some very clear things, but is there any one last feeling that you want to give people here on Chi Time before you go? What would that be?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, you know, we end this on a message of hope. All of this that we've mentioned and the attention being splintered and all that, that's all just an illusion. To draw your energy away from the creative potential that is just at the bottom of your next breath. And so that's the cosmic joke of it all, is that you're a God and you're a creator and you are beautiful and you are so powerful. Get your focus back so that you can actually build your vitality and focus your energy. And then you are a force of nature. And it's not that hard, but you are the only person that can do it for you. Everyone's looking for someone. Like, then, you know, I do these interviews and people are like, oh my God, you know, will you be my guru? I'm like, no, that won't do anything for you, right? That will do nothing for you. I'll teach you a bunch of exercises. I'll teach you how to meditate. Here are all the tools, but unless you do them, you are still stuck in the delusion that something outside of you is going to fix you. I'm not going to fix anybody. I can only give you the tools for you to take and fix yourself. So what's it going to be? A life of bondage, slavery, and confusion? Or are you going to sit on your ass and meditate for a few minutes and start waking up and understand that you have been the missing ingredient this whole time? Come back.
Come back, come back. Come back, do. We will look forward to the next time. But until that is, thank you for your presence here today on Chi Time, Dr. Pedram Shojai.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.